I'm Taryn Almanzar. I'm the Associate Dean for Admissions and Financial Aid on behalf of our office, on behalf of the J School. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for choosing to spend the next hour and a half learning about our programs and the application process and the financing piece of it, just to so that you are able to have an idea of how the next hour or so is going to go and be. We're going to start with an overview of the different degree programs. Then we're going to talk about the application itself, the process, and then we're going to talk about finances. In between each of those sessions, we're going to allow for questions to be asked, but just so that you know, and also to give all of you thanks for submitting your questions ahead of time, because that helped us shape what we're going to be presenting to you. I'll just say that I love seeing all of the faces and the names, and some of them already recognized. So that's pretty exciting. And then talking about faces and people to know, I'm just going to very quickly introduce my colleagues who you will be dealing with for the next few months, as well as myself. I'll start in the order that I see them on my screen. Ross Yelsey, who is the Assistant Director for Admissions and Marketing, and who will be leading our discussions today. I have Edwin Isaac, who is our Associate Director of Financial Aid and Admissions. And I have David Hooker, who is our Office Manager. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Ross. Ross, over to you.
All right, thank you, Karen. And I'd like to welcome everyone to this discussion. I'm going to go over all of kind of our programs right now, so you get a sense on the different degrees we offer and kind of show you the differences between those. And then we'll be able to take questions, as Taryn said, after that. And right now the chat will be closed, but once we hit that point in the presentation, we'll open the chat up and I'll ask you to address your questions to Taryn Almanzar as the co-host, and she will be able to read out some of the ones that we can address during the kind of time slated for that particular part of the discussion. So I'm going to start my slides in a second, and we'll go over just an overview of all the programs, and certainly we won't go into all the details, so I'm sure you'll have specific questions we can take in that Q&A portion. Great, so I'm just going to share my screen 1 second. Okay. Great, so I thought I'd just start with a slide that shows basically where we're all based right now. This is Pulitzer Hall, as you see in the background. This is where all of the journalism school classes are held. It's 8 stories tall, and it's all for the journalism school. So it's all master's students and doctoral students in our school and the faculty. There's no other departments, no other programs in the school. So it's really a great place where on every floor, everyone is working journalistically. They're doing stories in different types of mediums, having discussions with each other, working in studios, doing audio and visual and broadcast work. So it's a really exciting place to be. And as you can see, the building behind it, Low Library to the right with the dome, is one of the kind of iconic places on Columbia's campus. And we're really in the heart of the campus. So even though we all kind of work in this one building, all the networks and other opportunities at the university are right next door. So it's a really great place to be studying journalism. And definitely our subway line is directly to the west of us as well. So you can get to anywhere in the city to do reporting and just explore Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, and the rest of the area around here. So I'm just gonna start here. Great, oops, sorry, I went too fast. So here's just a little kind of picture, pictures of the campus here. You can see a sense of what it's like to be a student. On our right, we have a group of students working with Professor Doolin too, doing visual storytelling. You can see below that here, this is Joe's, which is a place where you can go and enjoy coffee and talk to your classmates or your faculty about some of the reporting you're doing. It's a really great space just to get caffeinated and to have some social time and collaborative time. And over here, you see students and faculty meeting together just on the steps in front of the building. You see that a lot right now, especially as the weather is nice. So it's a really, dynamic place inside and outside in terms of just the discussions and the collaborations. And then you can see it's also a very social place overall. And we have a lot of events that go on here year round. Up on the right, you can see one of our conferences that the Columbia Journalism Review holds. Right now, some of these are going to be virtual as we deal with some of the restrictions for the pandemic, but we have a lot of in-person events for our current students. And we also have, some hybrid opportunities as well, but we do have a lot of discussions year round about, questions about disinformation, as that event is about, but also about, writing or reporting on the environment, about issues about inclusion and diversity and reporting. All sorts of things are taking place year round in Pulitzer Hall. And now to get on to the programs, I want to just outline basically what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes. We're going to talk about the Master of Science program first. That's the program that is our largest program at Columbia Journalism School. It has a full-time and a part-time option. The part-time is available for people who are maybe going to be working, pretty much like a normal 9-to-5 schedule during the weeks, but want to learn journalism skills. It's ideally suited for them. But the full-time program and the part-time program really teach all the essentials of reporting and allow you also to customize the degree to kind of learn about areas that are of interest to you, whether it's certain subjects or other mediums as well. So if you're interested in broadcast or magazine or other things, you can explore all of that within the MS. It does have 2 specific specializations, though, beyond the general program. We have a documentary specialization and an investigative specialization, and I'll talk about those in more detail momentarily. We also have a Master of Science in Data Journalism, which is for people who want to learn how to use data as a reporting tool, as a reporting source, and want to learn both kind of reporting and data skills in order to find, collect, and analyze data to do storytelling and reporting, both investigative stories and other kinds of informative stories that use data as a main source for that. And we also have something that sounds somewhat similar, but is different in terms of what the goal is of the program is, and that's our dual MS in journalism and computer science. And that's for people who do have some computer literacy already coming into the program and want to design applications and software to help with reporting and with also storytelling as well. So it's more for research and development work in computer science and journalism. And then we also have a Master of Arts program, which is for experienced journalists. We'll talk about this in more detail momentarily, but it's for people who want to gain more skills to do ambitious storytelling in one of 4 concentration areas, which we'll talk about later in the presentation as well. And finally, we have something very different than those programs. All of the master's programs are for people who want to gain skills to do professional journalism and different types of realms of journalism. But we also have a doctoral degree, a PhD in communications, and that is different in the sense it's for people who want to pursue an academic career, either as a professor or as a researcher, but want to learn about how to study communications in different angles. And we'll talk about that also in more detail as we go through the presentation. And now just breaking down the Master of Science programs, I talked about this briefly, but you can see here we have basically the comprehensive Master of Science program, and that's the program that's available in full and part-time options, and the investigative specialization, documentary specialization, the Master of Science in Data Journalism, and the dual degree. So these are all under the Master of Science umbrella. And the Master of Science, people sometimes ask, is that a science degree because it's called Master of Science? But it's not necessarily a scientific degree, but it's one that has a lot of practical skills in it. So that's why these are all kind of labeled under that, because they have all the essential skills of reporting, storytelling, multimedia storytelling, all of that within the MS umbrella. And so the fall semester of the MS curriculum, so you get a sense on what that would entail, usually is mainly about building up those fundamental skills. So it always will begin with a reporting module. That's a class where you will go out into the city and go tell a range of stories, different deadlines, different subjects, different lengths of stories. So you get a lot of experience under your belt. Within the first 6 or 7 weeks of the program, you'll really be spending a lot of that time working as a working journalist, really. All of our faculty will kind of assign you stories as they would if they were an editor at a newspaper or a magazine, and tell you, we need to find out what's going on in this part of the city or on this specific beat, and you'll go out and really gain that skill set by doing it. It's not as much of a discussion kind of format where you're just learning about journalism. You're really learning by doing in the reporting class. And also in the fall, you'll take a class called the Written Word in the MS program, and that's to really build up your writing skills. Obviously, that's kind of what the name of the class implies, but it's not just a generic class where you learn about just what writing is in one kind of set format. There'll be about 20 different options you can choose from in the MS program in terms of subjects that you might want to learn how to write about in more depth. And those can include a class that's very popular called 800 Words, where you tailor all your stories to be no longer than 800 words. So you'll learn how to be very concise and very creative and kind of integrating a lot of reporting and data and depth into a short story. There's classes like writing about the environment, writing opinion pieces, all sorts of things like that. So you have a lot of choices in terms of ways you want to focus your writing, but you'll definitely come out of the program with very strong writing skills with that particular class in the MS. And then we also have something called Image and Sound in the fall semester. And that is where you get a choice of audio, data, photo, or video in terms of the classes you'd want to take. And that's your first opportunity to get introduced to one of these areas of multimedia storytelling. You'll have more, as I'll mention shortly, to do more in these realms, but it's a way to get essential skills. So learn how to do the recording for audio as well as the post-production work, and learning how to do the storytelling in a really compelling way in that particular format, similar for video, photo, or for using data as well. So basically the fall is really about building all these fundamental skills, reporting, writing, and then like multimedia knowledge. So that's really how the fall is built out for the MS. And then in the spring is your chance to really customize your experience in the MS by focusing your attention on 2 classes. You'll have a lot of choices in front of you, but you'll have time to kind of explore the different options, talk to faculty, learn about the different syllabi for these different classes, and then decide which 2 you want to take. And this is where, say, if you're interested in covering a specific beat, there's classes like covering religion, covering race, covering environmental issues. There's also classes more about a certain format of storytelling, like video newsroom, which is where you do a whole broadcast studio experience, basically, where you're learning how to anchor news broadcasts, how to go out on the street and do news reporting that would then be integrated into a news broadcast, and also how to do all the production work in our control room for that. And for people interested in radio or podcasting, we have multiple classes about how to learn how to do storytelling in those formats as well. And so this is really a chance for people in the kind of broad, flexible MS program to kind of find the paths that make sense for them. And so we don't make you decide in the MS program if you want to do any of these when you apply. You don't have to set out and say that I want to take the broadcast track or the magazine track or the covering religion track or anything like that. Really, the MS program will allow you to customize it as you go and find paths that maybe you've already decided you want to go on, or maybe change your path maybe midway through or once you get to the school and learn about some of the other opportunities in storytelling. So you don't have to actually feel like you need to apply to a specific path necessarily to apply to the MS. It's a very kind of big tent, as they would say, where you have a lot of different opportunities within it in terms of areas of reporting and in mediums of reporting in terms of the training you'll get. And so people sometimes ask also about what it looks like, to take this program. It's not the typical semester-long kind of curriculum that you might have had in undergrad or maybe in another graduate program where all the classes start at the beginning of the semester and end at the very end of the semester. We have what we call modules in our MS program. So you can get a sense looking here about how it breaks down. Where, as I mentioned, you have reporting that starts the MS program. This is the full-time curriculum. And you'll also have smaller modules that will then follow that before that semester ends. So this semester really begins in mid-August and ends in mid-December, but you'll have different classes that will compose that semester experience. So the reporting module is one that starts here. You'll also be taking a class on investigative techniques, even if you're not necessarily going to focus on investigative skills over the course of your time at Columbia. We feel like you should also have some essential investigative skills for information requests, interviewing techniques, learning how to analyze some documents and data if you're doing investigative work. So that will be built into your experience here for sure. And the writing module and image and sound, which I mentioned already, are definitely coming up later in the semester, so you'll have those. And I didn't mention earlier, but you'll also have some classes in law and ethics and history and business scattered throughout the fall and spring semesters. And that's to give everyone a good sense of the context of the profession you're working in. So you're gaining all the skills, but you're also learning about some of the big issues that surround reporting, both in the US and internationally as well. So ethical questions, legal questions, not just here, but in other countries you might be reporting in. All of that. So a lot of discussions about all the kind of the big picture elements of journalism, both of where it's going and where it's been, and how to kind of act ethically in different contexts in reporting. And then you see this thing also, which I didn't talk about yet, which is called the master's project. And you see that's in all of the basically components of the curriculum. And the master's project is your chance to do a larger reported story, basically something that matters to you, as long as it's journalistic in kind of what the subject matter is and the way that you're telling it. You can do a story on that. It could be about, an investigative piece, a hard-hitting news story, but it could also be about sports. It could be about the arts. It could be about scientific issues. It could be about medical issues, about education, about political issues, business. It really runs the gamut. And what we'll do is pair you with a professor who will be an expert basically to guide you through that process. And you'll be assigned that mentor basically in the fall. And you'll start right now to, at this time in the year, basically I've been hearing that people have been assigned their master's project advisors right now. You'll start to talk to them about how you're going to work out this project in terms of what the, a strategy will be in terms of who you're going to want to talk to, what kind of sources, what kind of, on the ground reporting will need to be done. And you'll start to set out and do some of that reporting in the fall. And then definitely during January, which is a break between the semesters, a lot of students will spend their time doing the bulk of their reporting. And that's usually in the tri-state area because it's, convenient to be able to go back and forth to different reporting areas while you're, in the area of New York. So that's usually what will happen there. And then in the spring, you'll be working on, multiple drafts of that story with your advisor, and you'll finally turn that in about halfway through the spring semester. And a lot of people will, be very proud of what they've accomplished with that story. And a lot of them might have the ambition to get that published somewhere. And oftentimes either, during your time at Columbia or, in the months or weeks after you graduate, a lot of students work on revising that and getting connected to different publications to potentially publish that for a broader audience. So all the things that you do in all these classes are basically meant to be things that are publishable in the sense that they're not class assignments that are only for a classroom setting. They're not theoretical papers about journalism. They're really works of journalism. And sometimes those do get published in major outlets. And there's a case right now where we have a person in a reporting class right now who published her story about how barbershops in Harlem have been affected by COVID in CNN. So there's a lot of opportunities to get your work out there in our program. And then I'm just going to quickly go through the way that our curriculum differs in these different formats. So in the part-time Master of Science, which I mentioned, there is, instead of 2 semesters, it's 5 semesters. And so you spread the requirements that I just outlined for the Master of Science full-time over basically 2 academic years. So you'll do all the things I talked about in terms of those modules, but have the chance to have the time to work in your full-time job or your other occupation, and also take classes in a way that's manageable. So you take reporting, written word in the fall, and then take one of those seminar productions in the spring and do your master's project in the summer between your 2 academic years, and then complete the rest of the requirements in the second academic year. And so that works well for people who are already situated in New York or the area around here and would like to keep their job, but also would like to gain all these skills that you would get in the full-time Master of Science. And then I mentioned that there are 2 specializations in the MS. And so there is one called the Stabile Investigative Specialization. And that's the same duration as the Master of Science General program, but it's for people who want to really focus their kind of attention on building strong investigative skills. So it's for people who want to have that career in accountability journalism, as well as in kind of, looking at corruption, looking at, money laundering, looking at negligence in different institutions. So it's building a lot of skills specifically in that kind of career path. So if that's really where you want to go and that's where you want to focus your attention, then that's the program that you might want to look into more. And the way that that differs a bit, and I won't go through all of these pieces, but you'll have an investigative master's project for sure. So instead of having the chance to write about sports or about arts or other things, you'll definitely be doing an investigative methodology in terms of the story you're going to do for your master's. And you'll also be taking more intensive focused investigative classes, both in the fall and then also in the spring, where you'll have an investigative seminar that's really about building information request skills, data analysis skills, and also interviewing skills, how to get people to actually open up and provide sometimes very sensitive information about wrongdoing to reporters. So you'll get a lot of that on top of all the essentials that are part of the MS curriculum for everybody. And similarly, we also have a MS Documentary Specialization. And that's a program for people who really know when they're coming into the school that they want to pursue a career in documentary journalism, filmmaking, basically. So reported documentaries, not maybe the same documentaries that are really more visual in scope or more kind of light in their approach in terms of maybe just being a light profile of someone. These are very much journalistic in method. So you're going to learn all the essential reporting skills, and all the documentaries you'll do have a lot of rigorous reporting in them. So for people interested in that type of documentary, this is the program that would be the right fit. And similar to the investigative specialization, what it means is you're doing a lot of the same essential skill building that you do in the MS program, no matter what, but you're also taking some very focused classes on documentary skill building. So in the fall and spring, you're going to be doing very intensive seminars on documentary filmmaking techniques, technical techniques, storytelling techniques, post-production techniques. And then different from our other programs, there's a third semester for the documentary program where you'll be actually doing a documentary, a short documentary, usually with a partner. And that's something where you're going to do a professional style, usually about 30-minute documentary. You'll start to figure out what that project will be in the fall and spring and develop that. And then you'll spend that summer really putting together something of a really, strong caliber of reportage as well as production, quality. And a lot of our students will then potentially get those also broadcast or published in places. We have a doc fest that we have at the end of the calendar year where everyone who will show off their final master's project films. They're very different in terms of their stories, the kind of approaches, but the caliber of them is really strong. And a lot of people do, really build a strong portfolio in documentary film just from the work that they're doing in the program here. And then we also have an MS in data journalism. This is a relatively new program at our school. It's about 3 years old now. And we really saw the need for journalists out there who have both really strong reporting skills, but also data analysis skills and also kind of data, visualization and storytelling skills as well in newsrooms around the world. So this program also has the fundamentals of the MS program, all of the reporting skills, writing skills, the law and ethical knowledge, but it also has much more of a focus on having both journalism and data training throughout the curriculum. So you can see here, there's reporting as well as computational and data classes spread throughout 3 semesters, similar to the documentary program. This has a 3rd semester because we feel as though this is something that will take some time in terms of gaining all these different skill sets. So the data program will take 3 semesters, fall, spring, and summer, like the doc program. And so this is a program where we'll do a master's project that will have data as a key source in terms of what you're going to be telling a story about. So it could be about, again, corruption, money laundering that you're able to track through looking at economic data. It could also be about climate change by looking at climate data or forest fire data or, sea level data, things like that. So there's a lot of different things you can do with data in this program. And the nice thing about it is it doesn't necessarily require that you have extensive or really any data knowledge coming into it. It's really starts from scratch. So you can come into this program and get a really strong skill set, starting in the fall, both in reporting and in data and computational knowledge. So it's a great program to really build up essential skills in both of those areas. And then we also have this dual degree program I mentioned, which is slightly different. It sounds somewhat similar because it has computational elements in it as well. And this is our dual MS in journalism and computer science. And this is a 2-year curriculum, and it's a dual degree program between the journalism school and the computer science department in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at Columbia. And as opposed to the data program, does require that you come into it with some strong computer science knowledge already, because it starts at the kind of graduate level in terms of the training you would get in computer science. And it's broken out in a way that you'll have components in both the journalism school and in the engineering school throughout the semesters. And it takes 2 years. And you'll spend a lot of time both learning all the essentials of reporting that our MS program entails, but also classes in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, especially in the computer science department, about learning, machine learning, other types of visualization techniques, computational skills to allow you to really develop applications and software that will be helpful in newsrooms or media organizations. So it's more of a place where you're going to come up with an app or a platform or a piece of software that will be very helpful for news gathering or news storytelling. So the program is more suited for R&D, that research and development kind of path, as opposed to necessarily using computational skills to do reporting. Although you can do both, this is mainly a way to kind of build some, computer-based applications that can be very valuable. And graduates from this may be working in R&D departments at places like the Washington Post or the New York Times or other outlets doing that kind of work. And in addition to that, we also have what we call dual degree programs at Columbia that are slightly different. So for the dual degree in computer science, you can see that that was both classes in the journalism school and the School of Engineering at the same time. All of these other dual degree programs will be separate in the sense that you would take both programs separately in terms of taking our program 1 year and then the other program in other years. So you would never overlap your training with these programs. And I should also say you only apply once to the dual dual with computer science, but for these programs, all the ones that are listed here, we have a dual MS with the School of International and Public Affairs. That's an international affairs degree. We have a dual MS and JD with the Columbia Law School, and we have a dual MS and MBA with the Columbia Business School. In addition to that, we also have a dual MS with the MA in Religion with the Department of Religion. These are all programs where you have to apply separately to those programs. So you would apply to our school, and you'd also apply to that other school for that particular program. And if you're admitted to both separately, then you would work with both schools to kind of time out when you would take our program curriculum and then their program curriculum. And you would also apply for scholarship or financial aid opportunities separately from both programs. So as opposed to the dual degree with computer science where you apply with one application to the School of Engineering for that program, all of these dual degrees would require you to apply separately to us and then to those other schools if you're interested in these particular dual degree programs. But that's how that would work. And so that's the MS program. And I want to hand this over now to my colleague David Hooker in the admissions office to talk a bit about the Master of Arts program, which is slightly different, and he'll explain a bit about how that is.
Sure. Thanks, Ross. And thank you everyone for joining us today. So Ross went into detail about the MS. So as you've heard, the MS program really focuses on the skills and the foundation of journalism, which is different than the MA program. The MA program is really designed for working journalists. So with the MA students that apply to that program, they already have all of the reporting and the writing and the storytelling skills that students are taught in the MS program already. So they have all the foundation of journalism, of reporting, conducting interviews, gathering research. They have all those skills already. But what they really want to do is they're going back to school so they can really dive deep and cover very specific subjects when you're doing their reporting. And those areas are arts and culture, business and economics, politics, and science. So one of the really highlights of this program is classes are taught in the journalism school, but they also take classes at other graduate schools at Columbia University. So for example, folks who are interested in business can take classes at the business school. Folks who are interested in arts and culture can take classes at the School of the Arts. Health and science, they can take classes at public health. So you're really bridging those two, the journalism skills that you have and the subject area expertise to really make your story stand out. So that's really the focus of the MA program. And folks who apply to that really have to show in the application and their resume that they have a strong portfolio, that they have covered beat reporting already, and they have all those skills. So we have taken students on occasion who have less than 3 years of experience, but generally it's really designed for folks who have anywhere from 3 to 15 years of experience. And then Ross has on here some slides about how the curriculum looks. So for the most part, you're taking seminar classes in the concentrations that you're opting for. And then everyone takes classes for investigative training techniques. So, although the MS program has the investigative skills, this is more to, investigative training is really important for journalists to have. So we have built that into the curriculum for the MA program as well. And then there's also the master's thesis, which is similar to the master's project used in the MS program, but this is more of a longer form piece. I think it's about 3,000 to 4,000 words longer. You get to choose the topics, and it's really sort of a deep dive in the subject area that you're interested in, whether it's health and science or arts and culture or politics. I do want to just take a quick minute just to note that you don't have to have experience already in the field that in the concentration that you're applying for. So for example, if you're really passionate about reporting on science and health, but prior to coming to the J school, you've been a business reporter, like that's absolutely fine. What you want to do is really highlight your skills that you've done already. So you don't have to have one of the concentrations already, like science, for example. You can actually learn about how to report on a field or a subject that you haven't been able to report on before. So you don't have to have that experience already when applying to the program.
Great. Thank you, David. And so I'll hand this over to my colleague, Edwin Isaac, Associate Director of Admission and Financial Aid, to talk about our PhD, which is a very unique, different program.
Thank you, Ross. Yeah, so our last program here that we're going to discuss is the PhD in communication. So it's not a degree in journalism, it's in communications. It's a multidisciplinary program, kind of crafted to take the courses all throughout the university and study communications in different areas that are of interest to you, whether it's like politically, economically, culturally. But essentially the goal of students who come into the PhD program is not to be a journalist. It's, a lot of people go into academia to be, work as faculty at universities or to do research or possibly even do some consulting, but it's not focused primarily on journalism. We're still in Pulitzer Hall. You may take some journalism courses, but again, it's more about the study of communications. It's a commitment of about 5 to 7 years for most students, and we only admit about four people every year we bring into the program. So what's important for you to do is to take a look at our website, look at the bios of the different students who've been admitted into the program, look at the bios of the faculty advisors, see what their interests are, see what they're working on, and see if there's any type of overlap, because these are the people that you would be working with for almost a half of a decade, right? So you want to make sure you have similar interests. We had a wonderful session yesterday with Professor Tucker, along with a student who is actually, the student is actually teaching at NYU. So I think it's important to maybe take a look at that video. We'll send that out to you next week. But take the time to see what the students are doing in the program, what they're doing after they leave the program, and see if there's a match there for you. And certainly we can discuss further to see if the PhD program is the right path for you to take.
Oops, sorry there. Great.
No
I'm just
problem.
gonna, I have a little problem here with my slide. I'm just going to stop.
No worries, Ross. I think now if we want to take some questions, I think we're going to open up for students to direct their questions over to Dean Almanzar. You can go ahead and send that directly to her in the chat, and we'll start to field some of the questions specifically about the programs. Now we're going to go into the application, we'll go into financial matters, but right now, if you have any questions about any of the degree programs, we'll start fielding those questions right now. And you can, again, need to send those questions directly to Taryn Almanzar.
All right, while we wait for that, I can ask a couple questions that we got in advance. We had a couple questions about whether you can apply to multiple programs, like can we apply to the PhD, the Master of Science, and the MA all in one academic application cycle?
I'll take that one. So you can only apply for one degree program per application. I will mention that with the MA program, remember we're talking about if you, for those who may not have 3 to 5 years of experience, but you might have 1.5 or you have 2 years of experience, and you think that you really have enough as far as the essentials of journalism down pat, what you can do is you would apply for the MA program. And in the application, there's a checkbox that if the faculty, when they review your application and they feel that you just don't have enough of the essentials for the MA program, your application will also be reviewed as for the MS. So that's really the only way to apply for multiple programs. But again, you can only apply for one degree program.
Mm-hmm. Great. And in terms of that, we also had a question about whether you can apply to both the part-time and the full-time, or how does that work if you're not sure yet if you want to do one or the other?
You can. So what tends to happen is, after students are admitted, and then they let us know whether they're going to come or not, which happens in the first week in May. Sometimes things change. So if you let us know, the sooner the better, that maybe you're in you applied for a part-time program, but you want to accelerate and do the program full-time, you can do that. Just let us know like as soon as you accept the offer. So in the summer, that's when that happens. So it's best to, decide which program fits your schedule best when you're applying, but we understand that things change. So we do make exceptions.
Great. Any questions in the chat yet, Taryn?
Yes, I have one question, and the question is, how extensive of a resume is expected? For example, number of articles, do you require experience at multiple outlets? And if somebody can respond to both, like for what we require for MS and for MA, that'll be great.
Sure, I guess I could do that. Yeah, the MS program, since it is a degree that's really built to provide essential skills in journalism, it doesn't require that you apply to that program with, an extensive resume necessarily in journalism. It's people who have, maybe, zero experience in journalism, but have maybe been doing work that's really interesting before, either in careers or their majors in college. But it's also people who have maybe done a couple years of journalism, both in internships or, professional work, and want to gain stronger skills. So, it's certainly, if you do have journalism experience, it's great to apply to the MS with that. But if you don't have that yet, or you're coming to it from another, business career, or a career teaching, or in medicine or law, or just a different type of path, as long as you kind of articulate in your essays why you want to, pursue this now, and show that you kind of have the kind of mindset, the commitment to doing this kind of, journalistic work, which really requires you to do professional journalism pretty fast. In the fall semester, you're already going to be asked to do a lot of reporting, go out into the street and find all sorts of stories, that you're up to that challenge in the essays. Then that's what we look for, especially in the MS application. But you don't have to have a strong resume necessarily in professional journalism for the MS. On the other hand, for the MA program, as David was talking about, that is for people who can show that they have done, extensive, complex reporting already. And that's usually shown by having, a good resume of reportage, either, at newspapers or magazines or other types of outlets. Broadcasts certainly is applicable as well. But in some instances too, if you've already done a lot of complex reporting as an undergraduate, say for your college newspaper, or for some internships you've already taken in your time as an undergraduate, where you've shown that you can do pretty complex reporting with multiple sources, multiple kind of levels of analysis, stuff of, a long magazine length kind of article, and you have those to show, then that would be something that could be a compelling, piece of an application for an MA applicant. So MA, I would say it's good to have professional clips and or show that you've done that kind of intensive, complex reporting already. So that's the difference, I would say, between those.
Excellent. There's a piggybacking on that. There's another question which we touched upon, but I think we need to clarify that. Does opting to specialize in the MA program, that is, in a different subject than what your reporting experience lies in, does that affect your chances of being accepted? So in other words, let's say I have extensive experience in politics, and I want to now gain more knowledge or specialize in business. Will that affect my chances? Should I stick to what I've already have been covering? What's the strategy behind it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't mention that I am actually a graduate of the MA program, so I can speak with some experience about just how that program works. But I would say the answer is it will not matter in terms of your admissions chances about whether you've already done reporting in the particular subject you're applying to for the concentration. The thing that's going to be important, like I mentioned, will be like showing that you've done kind of complex reporting already. It doesn't matter necessarily if that beat corresponds with the MA concentration you're interested in. So for instance, you could be someone who's done a lot of reporting already, say in science, and you want to continue learning more about how to do science more deeply. So you could apply to the MA science concentration and do, higher level work there. But if you've already been doing science reporting and you want to do politics or arts and culture or business, as long as you show that you have a strong, background in reportage, no matter the beat, and explain in your essays about why you're, interested in maybe taking this new kind of direction in terms of the subject you're interested in reporting in, then that should be very compelling too. So I would say that the faculty committees for admission for the MA programs are open in terms of their understanding of like who would be a good candidate. They just want people who definitely can like hit the ground running and do very strong multi-sourced reporting already, because they don't teach the fundamentals of that the way the MS professors will. They will want you to kind of come in and know how to get sources right away, get things on deadline, get, very complex stories completed in a very short amount of time. So as long as you're up for that challenge and you want to maybe change your path in terms of subject, you should apply to whatever concentrations interest you now in your career, not exactly what you've done before, is what I would say.
Thank you, Ross. That's a very comprehensive answer. Continuing on with that trend, where you talked about the MA and concentrating in a particular area, what about the MS? Very high level, just in terms of the seminars. What does that look like? What is, what in terms of the options for it?
That was the MS, right, Taryn?
Correct.
Oh, sure. So the MS program, as we talked about, has the reporting module and those writing classes, image and sound classes in the fall, and also has the seminar and production classes in the spring. And those are all like seminar sized in terms of the kind of student size of that. So around 15 or fewer students in each of those particular sections of it. So it's very much like a workshop atmosphere, I would say, in terms of all those classes. So you're going to be, getting a lot of time to offer feedback to your classmates and get feedback from them and get feedback from your faculty members and have a lot of interaction and a lot of time to really go back and forth over projects you're doing. But as I mentioned too, in the MS program, it's a very practical, hands-on education. So everyone's going to be coming into that class doing different types of stories. So in reporting, it's, the reporting you're doing around New York. Written word, it's, some stories that you're really focusing on the writing of together. In image and sound, you're bringing in maybe video footage or audio recordings and going over how to best edit that and turn that into a story. And in the spring, depending on what you're focusing on, whether it's, audio, video, writing in long form, covering religion or politics or whatever it might be, learning how to get a lot of, good clips and in whatever, subject or medium you're working in, and getting that back and forth feedback from your classmates and your instructor.
Excellent, thank you. And one last question before we move on. It's in terms of the part-time program, can international students apply for the part-time?
Yes, that's a question. And maybe Taryn, you'll just double check me, but I think the answer is usually no, unless there are particular visas that people are on that allow them to work already in New York. But if you're coming on a student visa, which most students do, if they're coming international to our programs, only the full-time would make sense in that case, because the full-time program is something that international students, from wherever around the world could take. But the part-time program, unless there is a specific visa you're on that allows working already, you can't. So with some exceptions, there might be a possibility. For most part, international students should only apply for the full-time program.
And that is correct.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Great.
I'm just going to add something very quickly. I'm giving all of you homework. We've given you a lot of information about the programs and the different focuses and what you can accomplish within it. Your homework is now to take stock of where you are, meaning professionally. What kind of experience do you have? What kind of training do you have? And then think about, where do you want to go? Where do you see your career going? If you were to pinpoint and say, that's what I want to be, that's where I want to go. And then after you do that, make an honest assessment of what it is that you're missing at this point to get you from point A to point B. So that's your homework. As you're doing that, you're going to have questions, and if you're anything like me, you're going to think of like 40 questions that you should have asked during this session. I can assure you, this is not the last time that we will be going over the programs. We have Friday information sessions. We're going to have extended information sessions, webinars coming up that will go into more details about the different programs. But really take the time to make that assessment and know what it is that you need to move forward. So that's my homework for you guys before we move on to the application process. Over to you, Ross.
Thank you, Taryn. And then I'm going to hand this over now to my colleague, David, who will talk about the application. I already saw some questions in the chat about, what the requirements are for that. So we're going to go in depth now and take a look at what our application looks like on the screen, so you get a sense on what the elements are and how to provide the content that we'll need in the application.
Ross. All right, give me one moment. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. All right, so this is where you actually go through the entire application process. It's all online. To get to here, you just go to our webpage and then click on apply. And the first thing you're going to do is create a profile. So you put in your email address, you create a password, and then this is the screen that you'll see. Actually, your screen won't have all of these applications on it, but it'll just be blank. So what you'll do, first thing you'll do is you'll hit start new application. And then you're gonna select 2022, because this is when classes will start next year. So this is the current application cycle. And then here's the first question I see a lot that happens. I want to apply to the Master of Science program or the PhD. And I don't see it here. Where is it? So you have to go to Admissions 2022, click Create, Open Application. And then you come to the Program of Interest. And then that's where you get to click the specific program that you're interested in applying to. But I'll backtrack for a little bit. Let's just go back. So when you first enter your application, this is very important. This is the instructions page. Spend a little bit of time here because this shows you the deadlines for each program for the application. It shows you what materials are due for each program. So if you start at the top, if you're applying for the MS program, first thing you'll see is the deadline, December 15th. And this is the deadline, so it's a separate. So deadline for December 15th is everything that you see here in the application, all these tabs on the left. And materials, which are outside materials, which are things that you are submitting that you don't have any control over. So these are items that are not actually in these prompts. So that's your transcripts. If you're applying for the MS program, that's a writing test, which you will take in mid-December through up till January. So you actually take the writing test after you completed and submitted your application. Recommendation letters, because that's coming from, that's not in the application, you're waiting for other people to submit letters on your behalf. So we give you extra time to do that. And I'll show you that whole process as well. So those are the only sort of outside materials that can come in on this January 10th deadline. Everything else that you are completing in the application is due December 15th. So if you just scroll down, you'll see all of the requirements, the writing test, letters of recommendations, TOEFL or IELTS for our international students, essays. You'll see all the requirements that are needed for each application. So if you're applying for the MA, you'll see the same material there. So this is a good place to look at before you start putting in information in the application, okay? And the first couple of tabs are pretty straightforward. I'll skip that for now. The first thing I'm gonna look at is applicant data. This is a question I see a lot that happens. This question here, you want to apply for financial aid. Just because you select yes here, that does not mean that you're automatically considered for scholarship. There's a separate scholarship aid form. We'll be talking about that in our next section. But what you have to do, you use the same information for the admissions application. To apply for scholarship aid, you go back to the home page. When that's available, you'll get an email from us in December. You just hit start new application. The same process you did for the admissions app. And then when you get here, you'll see a tab for Scholarship Aid 2022. It's not available yet, but when it is, that's where you'll find it. You know what? If it should still be there for 2021. See, so if you just go here, So that's what you'll see in December when the scholarship aid app. Okay. So I know that's a part that's confusing. If you click the scholarship aid app there, yes. Oh, I thought I applied because I hit yes here. That's not the case. It's a separate scholarship. It's a separate form that you have to submit to get eligible for. Let's go to the education section here. We get a lot of questions about where to upload transcripts. So the first thing you want to start with, click on the institution. You fill all that information out there, where you went to school, the dates that you attended and graduated. And if you scroll to the very bottom, here's right there, you just click on, I get out of here now. So you just click there, and then you just upload. So it has to be a PDF. It can't be a picture of a transcript. It has to be either a scanned page or a PDF of your transcript.
And David, a question, say if I went to one school, a college, and I transferred to another college, or I did a summer abroad at a different institution, or a master's degree somewhere else after my undergrad, do I need to upload all those transcripts, or just maybe my BA?
The answer is yes, 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 and yes. Every university that you have attended, whether you just did one semester there, or you went to community college first and transferred to a four-year school, if you did a summer program at a university, we need every transcript that you, every school that you attended has to be uploaded or sent in to the application. So we need to see every transcript for every school that you attended.
And another question for people who might be still finishing their senior year of college right now, and they haven't finished their BA or their BS or their whatever their bachelor's is. Yep. What should they do? Can they still upload a transcript? Will we still look at their transcripts this cycle?
Absolutely. So at least just for the application process, what they can do is just upload their most recent transcript that they have. And then what we'll do is, if you are admitted and you decide to come, we'll ask for the final transcript in the summer once you have it.
Great.
Cool. So if you decide to sort of skip around in the application and you just want to jump right into the essays, right? There's nothing there. What happened? So what you have to do is you have to go back to the program of interest and choose which program it is that you're applying for, and then go back to the essays, and then that's where it populates. So depending on which program you choose, that dictates what questions populate on the essay portion. So we see that question a lot too. So just make sure, and you can skip around in the application, but if you get to the point where you're looking for the essays and it's not there, it's because you haven't chosen which program that you're actually applying for, because it changes, as you can see. So let's look at the references, because there's a question that I see a lot too, is do I have to submit my application in order for my references to be able to get the link for them to submit their reference letter on my behalf? The answer is no. So if you start your application today, and if you know who you're going to ask and you have already confirmed, and they're looking for the link from us to upload a letter on your behalf, put that information in as soon as possible. That way you're giving them more time to work on their reference letter. So you don't have to submit your application now, December 15th, and there's only that small window from December 15th to January 10th. A lot of people go away on holiday during that time too. So you can actually do that as soon as you have that information. So if you know who your recommenders are, open the application, put that information in right away, because as soon as you hit save and send the recommender, it's an automatic prompt. It goes directly to them, and it gives them more time to put together a letter and upload it. Any other questions that we get, Ross, on the application you can think of?
I think just questions about uploading multimedia samples or writing samples, how that works.
Sure. So if you have audio or video clips, what you want to do is scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it gives you our list of acceptable file sizes and types. So you can just follow all that information there. You can also upload links to your clips. So if you have a link from YouTube or Vimeo, you can just click here and just put in the URL. What you do want to make sure that you do, I see sometimes, is that if you have like your own website and some of your videos are private or locked, we won't be able to see it. So if you do submit clips and you have videos or links that are locked, make sure that it's unlocked so that we can review your work. Otherwise, we'll send you an email that hey, we can't view some of your clips.
Mhm.
And the same thing is for the written samples too. You just upload them right here on the application.
Great. And David, you mentioned the writing test, which is not something that's going to be like housed in this application, but can you tell folks a little bit about how that will unfold in terms of being asked to take that?
Sure. So once you submit your application, you'll get an automated email from us, and it's virtual. You don't have to go anywhere to take the test. It's done through like a third-party service. So all you have to have is a stable internet connection and a computer, and you can take it virtually anywhere. And Ross is right, it's not in the actual application, but once you submit your application, that's when you'll get an email from us giving you the instructions to do it. And it's pretty straightforward. Because it's virtual, you can choose times of when to take it. And as far as I know, the times, it's very easy and consistent to take. You can take it any time of day, doesn't matter what country you're in. There are lots of times, but it's better to sign up for it the sooner, the better, so that you have more time to prepare, because you never know what might happen. So once you get that email from us, after you submit it, sign up to take the test right away, because you have to sign up for the test 2 days before you actually take the test. So make sure you build that time into your schedule.
Right. And the writing test is required for anybody applying to one of our Master of Science programs. So if you are applying to the MS, the part-time MS, the data MS, the dual MS, all of those will require that you take the writing test. And if you're applying to the MA, but you want to be considered also for the MS degree, then you would be required also to take the writing test. If you only want to apply to the MA and not want to be considered for the MS, then you do not have to take the writing test. So that's one of the exceptions there. And I should say just about the writing test while we're just chatting about it, it's not like a test in the way that you might take a test that has like a perfect score or like it has right answers exactly and how it's being kind of composed. It's something that will ask you to, write answers to different kind of situations you might encounter as a journalist and talk about in writing, within a 90-minute time about how you might approach these different situations in a journalistic way. So it's a way to get a sense on how you're thinking journalistically and also how you're able to write about your thought process in a clear and kind of coherent way. So that's kind of what the point of it is, but it's not an exam in the way that you might expect, where there's identify this person, explain who this is, and we're looking for, an answer we've already set as like the right answer for the test.
Also, I'll just throw in real quick, there's a test that's circulating online from like 20 years ago. Like, please don't waste your time looking at that. It has, you have to know like your state of representatives, and it's like a map. It's not like that. So don't Google it. Please don't waste your time looking at that.
Right. And then maybe going back to the essays for a minute, David, in terms of what we look for the programs. We usually ask for all of our programs, basically, that we're going to ask for at least 2 essays, a professional one and an autobiographical one. And then if you are applying to the MA or to any of the specialized MSs, there'll be a third essay about why, say, you're interested in applying specifically to the MS Investigative Specialization or the MS Documentary Specialization or the data degree, or if you're applying to the MA, why arts and culture or why science or why business or why politics. So the minimum is 2 essays in terms of if you're applying to the general MS or to the part-time MS. But if you are applying to a program that has a specialized focus, then there will be 3 essays, a professional, autobiographical, and then a subject area essay about why you're focusing on one of these specific areas at the school. Right, so David's showing there the investigative essay is a separate one. So if you identify that you want to apply for a specialized program, then that essay prompt will pop up. But if you're applying to the basic general MS program or to the MS part-time, you should have the 2 essay prompts there. And I think the other question, I think we were just mentioning it earlier, David, was about if you are someone who's from another country where English is not the language, the native language, and or if you went to a school where you were not instructed fully in English, what will then be our requirement in terms of language testing?
Sure. So you would have to take either the TOEFL or the IELTS. You would input on the actual application the date of the test that you took, or the most recent test that you took, and the scores. And then you would also have to have your official scores sent into the office. And speaking on that, our requirements, the TOEFL is a 114, and the IELTS is an 8.0. And we do waive the TOEFL or IELTS exam if all of your classes, all of your exams for your bachelor's degree was taught in English. Every class.
Right.
Otherwise, the test is required.
And to clarify too, sometimes we have questions each year from people who didn't have a fully English language undergraduate education, but they have a master's maybe in English. What happens then?
You still would be required to take the test. It's all based on your bachelor's degree. And if you have any more specific questions about that, feel free to email us, and we'll be happy to go over that with you.
All right, great. Edwin, are you getting any questions in the chat for the application process?
Yes, I am.
All right.
All right.
All right, let's go through these. All right, first up, is there an application fee?
Yes, there is. It's $100.
Okay. Is there a GRE requirement for the Master of Science program?
No, the GRE is not required at all for a master's program, and it's optional for the PhD.
I would mention too, though, if you are applying to that dual degree with computer science, right now, this current cycle, it is optional to take the GRE for that. But in the past and potentially in the future, there might be a GRE requirement if you are applying to that for the computer science side of it. But this year, you do not need to take it. But if you are thinking of applying in the future, I would double check with us to see if there's a GRE requirement for the dual degree with computer science. But that's the only degree program there might be a GRE component to the application.
And I think also too, Ross, the PhD is not required this year. In the past it was, and in the future, again, we might bring that back.
That's true too. Yeah. So definitely, if you're not applying this cycle, check back with us and we will confirm with you what the requirements are. But currently this cycle, both are optional in terms of applying to those programs.
And Ross, if we'll just stay with you here, a student asked about the computer science program and where you apply. Where you apply for the computer science program.
Yes, that's a great question. So that is the only program where the application actually doesn't live at our journalism school application. It's actually administered through the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, Columbia CEAS. So I would, I'll put it in the chat in a second, but you would apply through the computer science program at the School of Engineering. So you go to the School of Engineering site to its graduate admissions area, select that program under its menu of options, and you apply to it there. You don't have to apply separately to our school and to the computer science school for that. You just apply with that single application, but you would go through the engineering school's website for it. But I'll put that link in shortly.
Great, thank you, Ross. David, can you talk a little bit about the different components of the application and what essentially, is due December 15th is our deadline, but also there's other aspects which can come later. Students asking about a recommender submits the recommendation letter a little bit late. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. But just to recap, anything that's in the application that you would be either uploading or inputting directly into the application form, that is due December 15th. The materials that can come in later would be the recommendation letters. So yes, to answer that question. And, at times we'll even take recommendation letters, if it comes a few days after that January 10th, because we know you don't have any control over that. So yes, recommendation letters can come in later. If you're applying for any of our MS degree programs, the writing test is also in January. It's not the December 15th test deadline. And transcripts. Transcripts can also come in after December 15th.
And David, I'm gonna stay with you with this next question here.
Sure.
A lot of people asking about the samples and how to essentially attach them.
Okay.
We're going to do maybe, I don't know, links, or PDFs, audio, video.
Let me just go back and share my screen again. Okay. So writing samples would be ideally PDFs, which you can upload directly onto the application portal. And clips, multimedia clips can be uploaded either video, audio, or through a URL, web link. So these are the file sizes and types. It should be it shouldn't be larger than 5 gigs. I'm not that technical, so I don't know how big or small that is. But these are the options that you can use for uploading your audio and video clips. And you can also just upload just the URL that goes directly to the link. So if you have your own, if you're doing your own blog and you have stories that you have listed on your blog or you have your own website, you can just supply us with the link that just takes us directly there.
Okay, thank you, David. If you don't mind, Taryn, I'm gonna bring this last question to you. The student had a question about, well, it's kind of talking about how we assess the application. We have students coming in straight from undergrad. We have students that are experienced in the industry, people coming from a completely different career area. And so, the question is kind of geared towards how do we assess an application? Do we put more weight towards a resume rather than maybe a GPA, depending on where the applicant is in their career path? If you can kind of touch upon that and kind of our holistic approach there.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. And just so that all of you know, I was writing that as part of my notes to bring up how the evaluation works, because we've been talking a lot about the requirements, which is critical because that'll help us in the evaluation. So what are we looking for when you have such a wide range of experience and backgrounds? What are we focusing on? To start off, regardless of the program that you're applying to, with the exception of the PhD, because remember, the PhD is not to study journalism or gain any skill sets in that. But if you're applying to the MS in journalism, dual degree in journalism with computer science, or the MA, one of the key things that we're paying attention to is what is your motivation to be a journalist? What is that drive that you feel within yourself to say, I need to go out there and report in whatever area it is that you're interested in? What is your drive to be a reporter? So that is the main thing, because the school is for journalism. It's not for anything else. So that's one of the main things we're paying attention to. We don't have a specific GPA or GRE cutoff, we, to Edwin's point, we take a holistic approach. So of course, we're going to be reviewing your transcripts, because if not, then why are we asking for it? But instead of paying attention, for example, to a specific GPA, we're literally sitting there and looking at the classes that you've taken, and looking at the grades. Maybe there was a semester that was off for whatever reason. We understand that. Or maybe you were, English literature and decided to take biostatistics, and you bombed biostatistics. We understand that. That's letting us know, risk taker. It didn't work out so well. We understand, we get it. There's also a portion in the application where you explain to us if there's anything that you want us to be aware of. And that's usually where applicants explain anything that might be off with their application. So that's more like an overarching view of how we review it. The way that I can tell you is to think of a story. To use your journalistic terms, you're pitching a story, you're pitching for us to say, yes, this person is the right fit for the school, and the school is the right fit for the person. So having said that, when you're putting your applications with the different essays, again, remember my homework. Think about and explain to us where you are, where do you see yourself going, what are the gaps that needs to be filled, and how is the journalism school going to help you fill in those gaps? So regardless of the program, that's the strategy to take. Now, in terms of the experience, remember, for the MS program, you don't need a journalism reporting experience and background. The school will be able to give you that. For the MA, you must have reporting experience. And what does this reporting experience mean? I can tell you right now that on average, students who are admitted to or applicants, I should say, that are admitted to the MA program, they have anywhere from 3 to 5 years of experience. So if you want to quantify it, but more importantly than quantifying the numbers of years, think about the reporting that you have done. Has it been multi-source? Has it been long format? Has it been investigative in nature? And really think about, if you were, I think it was Nicholas Lemon, who founded the MA program, who used to give the example of saying, think about there's a major news story happening in the city or in the country. If you're able to go out there, report, edit the stories, and just put that on the front page of a major newspaper or in the front of a major broadcasting station, and you're able to do that on the fly, then you're ready for the MA. If you're saying, oh, wait a minute, I would need, and that's not to say that students in the MA program do not have that kind of guidance and background, but they're walking in with that type of experience of being able to do the reporting on the fly. So those are the things that we are paying attention to, how we evaluate the admissions application. So again, we're looking to see if we are the right fit for the student and for the applicant more than anything else. And who knows you better than yourself? So let us know with your essays, with your resume, with your clips. In terms of the clips, the other question that people usually ask, oh, what should be the clip? What are you paying attention to? I always say, pick the top 3 clips, the ones that you're the most proud about, the one that you say, if you were to look at these clips, you will know what my work entails. Those are the ones that you want to submit. The same thing with recs, with letters of recommendations. Pick people that know you and know your work and are able to make the case for you. I would say, just point blank, ask the person that you are thinking of using as a recommender. You can just say, are you able and willing to write an amazing, a glowing recommendation for me? And you would be surprised. Some will say, oh, I don't have the time, or that's really great, but I wouldn't be able to make the case for you. And it's, it's harsh as that may seem, you want to know then, because then you can move on to somebody else. My other advice, because you're putting a story, your application is the story that you're putting together and all of the pieces have to coincide. My other advice, work on your professional essay before you reach out to your recommenders. After they tell you, yes, I can write this glowing, amazing recommendation for you, share your professional essay, because that'll shed some light into why you're pursuing this degree and why you're pursuing this career. Even if your recommenders are not journalists, even if your background is not in journalism, there's certain characteristics that transcend any field that you're into or have worked in. Critical thinking skills, leadership abilities, clarity of thought, all of those things, reliability, all of that they can talk about and can really vouch for you. So that's a window view into how we approach the admissions application and its supporting materials and how we review them.
Thank you, Taryn. That was the lots of the questions related to the application, Ross. So I'll swing it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Edwin. And I think now we're going to talk about the question we've been getting a lot about, how might you start to financially plan for a master's program or a doctoral program at Columbia Journalism School. So I think we'll have both Taryn and Edwin talk a bit about that next.
Thank you, Ross. So another homework that I'll give to all of you. I know I'm giving you lots of homework, but this is the time to do all of this work. Trust me. And you're asking the question about finances at the right time. Why are you asking that question? Why do I say you're asking it at the right time? Before you apply, before you make that commitment, you need to think about finances. Student loans are a reality. Planning for expenses are a reality. So yes, definitely think about it now. Whether you're looking at us, at other schools, those are critical questions to ask. So with that said, let's first talk about cost. How much does it cost to get your degree? I'm just going to walk you through very briefly on our website, because I'm going to give you, again, just an overarching view of what it costs and the different financing options. And then remember, you have the homework now of looking at the program, looking how much it costs, planning for to cover your living expenses, so on and so forth. But let me take a step back. Before I dive into this section, our admissions process is need blind. What does that mean? Need blind. We do not take into account your ability or lack thereof covering the full tuition and fees when determining if we're going to admit you into the program or not. That's a completely separate process. In order to gain admissions to Columbia's Graduate School of Journalism, we're focusing on the admissions application and all of its supporting materials. So remember that. With that said, let's talk about cost. So once you land on our website, journalism.columbia.edu, if you click on here on this navigation where it says where to begin, and in here you're going to find a couple of links. Deadlines and requirements are all the things that my colleagues Ross and David have delved into, as well as the different programs that Edwin, Ross, and David have talked about, and you can find that here. Then you'll find tuition, which is the cost, which we'll go over, scholarships and financial aid, which talks about educational financing, some frequently asked questions, request information, and then meet with us, where we list all of the different opportunities to interact with our office, let that be via email, setting up individual appointments, group sessions, so on and so forth. So with tuition, you click here, and we're very transparent. We're very upfront about how much does it cost to get your degree. In here, regardless of the program, I'm not going to go into details about the expenses because that's your homework. You need to go in here and look at the different programs and see the ones that the cost and what it entails. What each of them have in common is that you'll see the tuition and fees. That figure, it's what I like to call the non-negotiable. That is the one that you will need to pay in order to obtain your degree. That's what you need to plan for. There's no wiggle room around that. The living expenses are your food, transportation, personal expenses, which are also critical. For those of you who are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I always relate it to that because sometimes we find students that concentrate on the non-negotiable, the tuition and fees, and they don't think about the living expenses. Please plan for that as well. And live like a student. I always say, live like a student. Bring your lunch from home, bring your coffee from home, mitigate those expenses as much as you can so that the cost of attendance, you're able to manage that. So that's where you're going to find that information. And if you click on the details, again, we tell you about the tuition, the services, the estimated living expenses. For those of you who are not New Yorkers or have not visited New York, yes, these living expenses are pretty much the estimates and are pretty much on target with what, on average, a student living in New York will spend. New York is one of the most expensive cities in the world. Plan accordingly. You're going to see there, it's going to have a guide to the university's charges and what they all mean. And then if you go back here, we also give you bills and payments. It's also very critical for you to know when is tuition dues, what are the consequences of not paying, what are the options that you have. So really become familiar with this section. And like I said, even if you're attending or thinking of attending of another school, don't ignore this part of it, plan for it, and have the resources available. Tied into that, it's what are your financing options? What can you or what can we offer to mitigate that cost? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Edwin. Over to you.
Thank you, Taryn. And again, yes, I do want to second what Taryn is saying about doing your homework and understanding the costs of the program. But again, in this section here, we'll talk about how you can pay for those costs. The journalism school does offer institutional aid. You have to complete a separate application. David talked about that when he was going through the application for admission. In the application for admission, you mark off that you're going to apply for aid, but that is not the application. That's not the application. You have to actually complete a separate application. Many of the other journalism schools do not require a separate application. You're automatically considered just by applying. But for us, you have to complete and submit a separate application, okay? That application becomes available in December and is due in January. Everyone is eligible to apply for aid. Domestic students, international students, it does not matter. Everyone can apply, and you must apply by the deadline. You'll be notified if you're admitted into the program of how much aid that you have been awarded by us, if any, okay? But what's important here is you have to apply. If you wait to see if you've been admitted into the program, it'll be too late to do the application, okay? We award all of our funds at the time of admission. So once you receive the letter, if you've been admitted, all of our aid has already been awarded. So please complete the application by the deadline, okay? We have to assess your eligibility. We have funds coming from a variety of different donors that have different requirements and criteria. We look at your financial need. We look at your merit as assessed by the admissions committee. So please apply, but also be aware too, I mean, more than likely, you're not going to receive a package from us that's going to cover all of your costs. So you see here in this section, there is also outside scholarships, right? You want to apply for as much free money as possible, right? That's kind of the goal here. If you're unable to just, write the check, you want to get as much free money as possible. And the first step is certainly to complete the application for financial aid from the university, or shall I say from the journalism school specifically. But what you should also start doing is creating a list of outside scholarships. These are outside organizations that offer a variety of different funds from a variety of organizations. Okay, so what's important here is the deadlines for these scholarships don't necessarily align with the application deadline. Okay, so what you want to do is go through this, but also do your own Google search, go to other schools' websites, and make your own little database of outside scholarship opportunities. Certainly make a column for when those are due, filter it by the most recent deadline, the deadline that's upcoming, and just be ready to apply for as many outside scholarship opportunities as possible. There's free money out there. A lot of our students win these scholarships. So just take the time to do that. And, the money's out there, but you just have to be persistent in applying for that aid. Beyond institutional and outside aid, I'm going to turn it back to Taryn so she can talk to you about your third option. And excuse me, Taryn, I see here the PhD. The PhD students do not have to complete the institutional scholarship application. The students who are admitted into our program will be fully covered and will also be given a living stipend as well. So I'll turn it back over to Taryn to talk about your last option here.
Thank you, Edwin. So the last option are student loans. They have to be repaid. So think wisely about how much you're going to borrow. Learn the terms and conditions of the loans that you will be borrowing. Think about the repayment. What does that look like? And in terms of the monthly amount, and in terms of the amount that you would have paid towards the end of it. My advice before I start talking about the loans is to go to studentloans.gov. And in there's a repayment calculator. Go in there and think of the worst case scenario. Enter the amount that you think, but you hope that you will not need to borrow, and look to see what that means in terms of the monthly amount that you would be paying at the end of the loan, throughout the loan, and the aggregate amount that you would have paid at the end. Why do I start with that? Why do I say go to the calculator? Because we can talk about loans. I'm going to talk to you about interest rate, but there's nothing like seeing numbers and seeing concretely what that means in making this investment. So another homework, studentloans.gov repayment calculator. So with that said, US citizen and permanent residents who are taking more than 6 credits, are enrolled in a degree granting program, are able to borrow the federal direct unsubsidized loan, which has a prescribed amount of $20,500 per academic year, and the Graduate Plus loan, which you can borrow cost of attendance. So remember, tuition, fees, living expenses, minus any aid, loans, scholarship aid, and you're able to borrow up to that amount. I know I'm throwing out these numbers. I promise you we're going to have another webinar to focus just on the financing piece of it and the different items and things to think about. But for now, this is an overview of that. The Graduate Plus loan, the Department of Education will look at your credit history, but they're looking for really negative things. If your wages are being garnished for whatever reason, if you file for bankruptcy, so on and so forth. The interest rate for all of the federal educational loans, unsubsidized and Graduate Plus, are fixed. That means it will not change for the life of the loan. And once you go to this website, you will be able to gain more information regarding that. Private loans. Private loans are offered by private institutions to students. So these are banks, organizations. They have their own interest rate, their own application process. We, as a school, as a university, cannot prescribe the lenders that you should borrow from. We cannot outright recommend, but what the university has done through a process, it's that they've compiled a list of lenders that have provided the university with information about their interest, what does repayment look like, what are the amounts that look like, and as you can see, when you go here, there is two lists, one for domestic students and the other one for international. You can certainly apply to any of those lenders. You can do your own research, but you can use this as the starting ground for it. So that's, in a nutshell, the funding opportunities that you will have if you decide to enroll here at the journalism school. I see we're over our time, but maybe we can spend another 5 minutes, Ross, answering any questions. We probably will not get to all of the questions that you have, but like I said, this is not the last time that you will be interacting with us, and that we will have webinars, and that you can set up appointments, so on and so forth. So I'm turning it over to you, Ross.
Great. Some scholarship related questions we have already. I think the first one I'll ask is, on our website, we do have an area where it shows some selected scholarships that are offered by the school. This is going to clarify for people, are those the only scholarships we have at the school?
No, not at all. We have that's a short list that we have, but as long as you just complete the application, we'll look to see where essentially you fit, as far as looking at all the different criteria that all of our funds have, and looking to see if you meet those criteria. So we'll take the ones that you see, along with so many others that you don't see as well, and then we're just to see how much, we'll try to maximize as much as we can give to you. And I mean, it changes every year how much funding that we have. In that application process, or in the application, shall I say, don't be so modest. Talk about all of your desires and what you want to do in the profession. You'll have that opportunity to do that, and just just elaborate a little bit, and so we can find as many opportunities that you're eligible for.
And on the other hand, if somebody saw on that list of those, that small list of options on our website and said, "Ooh, I'm really a really good fit potentially for this one scholarship," will they necessarily, once the scholarship application opens, see that specific scholarship as something they apply to specifically in the application?
No, that's not how that works. You just have to just answer the question within the application, and then we'll do the work in the back end to see who's the best match for those specific scholarships.
Right. I know sometimes each year people do ask, like, I want to apply for the X scholarship I saw it on the website. You won't necessarily have to formally apply for those, with an exception or two. But generally, those are ones that will just you'll be eligible for by submitting your general application for a scholarship.
Correct. That is correct.
Great. A question about PhD program, and whether there's a ballpark estimate for what the stipend looks like for students, and also whether that amount varies based on each applicant, or is that a standard package?
Go ahead, Tara.
That is the standard package that we offer to our PhD students. The current rate for the stipend is about $35,000. And again, it's standard, and it's for all admitted PhD students. If you're admitted into the PhD program, just like the Masters of Arts, Sciences, just like Edwin said, at the time of admissions, we will also let you know what your award is going to look like and will be throughout your years as a PhD student. So that way you can make an informed decision as to whether this is the program, financially speaking, or not, to enroll in.
Mhm. Great, and just a couple more questions. One we get very often is whether there are scholarships available from our school that may cover full tuition and fees. Are those out there, and should people plan to expect to maybe receive that, or how should you go ahead thinking about that as an option?
Yeah, I wouldn't plan on getting a full scholarship from the journalism school. That's highly probable that's not going to happen. So plan on applying for scholarship from our school, but I would, again, want to reiterate, go ahead and start now. Taryn showed you exactly where you can start too, as far as looking for outside scholarship. Okay, so the cost for an MS degree is going for just tuition and fees alone is going to be probably for next year north of 80,000. Okay, more than likely you're not going to receive an $80,000 scholarship. So just believe that and take the time to start looking for outside funding.
Great. And one last question, a question we also get a lot for people who are maybe considering our full-time MS or MA programs. Is it possible to do TA-ships or work study things or work a bit on the side while you're in our programs to finance your education?
We strongly suggest you do not work while you're in the program. And I believe for our international students, you cannot work while you're here. So don't think you're going to be earning an income and being in the MS full-time or MA full-time program. You will exhaust yourself. Don't do it. Take as much as you can from Columbia while you're here. Those two programs full-time are very short. 10 months for the, or 9.5 for the full-time, 9 months for the MA. Get as much from Columbia as you possibly can. Okay, don't worry about working.
Great. Well, thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Taryn, for talking about all these financing options. And thank you to everyone who stayed with us through a pretty epic discussion of so many different topics with the application process and financial aid here at Columbia Journalism School. And as Taryn and everyone has mentioned, this is not the last chance to chat with us. So I put in a link for upcoming events. So you're welcome to come back and learn more about specific programs or another comprehensive session. If there's something you wanted to learn more about again, please join us for all of that through the next few months. And definitely check in with us at apply.journalism@columbia.edu if you have a specific question we weren't able to address or is more of a specific instance where it would just be a good one-on-one conversation about whatever that might be. So I'd like to thank all of my colleagues for coming to chat with everyone today. And I thank all the people from around the world who have asked such great questions and stayed for this great session. So have a great afternoon or a great evening or rest of your day. Take care. Bye now.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.